You know what? With that, let's go ahead and get started and look at what we're talking about today. So, we've got Bryan Welsh, and we're doing On, In, and Through, where we're talking about the marketing and sales and giving back when it comes to photography. So, before we get started, if this is your first time logging in, welcome. This is Let's Develop. I'm your host, Chris Woolley. This is a show sponsored by American Color Imaging, and you can find all the latest episodes as well as some of the replays at ACI's website, acilab.com/let's-develop. We have a new guest every 2 weeks where we take a deep dive into photography and what it means for being a professional photographer and ways that you can improve your craft. So thank you to ACI. We also have a special from ACI as well as some cool prizes to give away at the tail end of the show. If you happen to miss the last episode with Ella Carlson on creativity, that is live now. You can watch the replay on ACI's website. So make sure that you're not missing out on that one. So we are going to be going through today with Bryan. If you do have questions at all, put them into chat. Bryan's going to be answering them live as we're going through and as he's sharing. So this is completely interactive. So if you've got information that you want to know more about, it sparked an idea, something like that, put it into chat. There is a little thing on the sidebar with a question mark that's in it that flags it as a question so that I don't accidentally miss it. So if you're just typing in the chat, sometimes that can get lost in conversation. So hit that little question mark and type in your question. That way we know 100% it's a question and we can answer it. All right, so let's get our introduction here. We have Bryan Welsh. So master photographic craftsman, certified professional photographer. He's got degrees from Oregon as well as ASP, approved photographic instructor. He is a photographer, second generation, known for doing stylized creative shoots, a lot of portrait stuff that he's going. Excellent businessman and very, very generous in terms of sharing with our industry. I know that he's a mentor of mine. He helps a ton with the affiliates in terms of getting everybody on the same page and just elevating our industry. He's got PPA Image Excellence, Fuji Masterpiece Awards, Kodak Gallery, State Elite Award. It goes on and on. He just shares information and just pretty much helps get us all up and better and learning more. I am very, very excited to learn from you today, Bryan. So with that, you want to take it away?
Awesome. Thank you so much. And I think it's great that I'm sharing today after sharing all day. It just is all about that blessing through our businesses and through our profession. And I just love the energy of our group, and the high tide floats all boats. So thank you for joining. Like Chris mentioned, this is a conversation. I'm going to share ideas, but hopefully it sparks some energy and some questions. And then my biggest thing is that we all apply it, right? We take notes and we make things happen. And it doesn't happen by accident. So one of the questions I have for you to begin with is we talk about, we're business owners, and our business is there so that we can have a certain lifestyle and that we can work for ourselves. But what do we do with that, right? Is it merely just for profit? Is it merely just a job? Or is there something else we want from this?
You mean we might not all be in the photo industry for the money?
Exactly, right? The good news is you can make money, but money is just one measurement, right? It is just one thing. And for me, it's really about giving back. I can't think of many ways to spend my time that's more rewarding than sharing information and seeing growth in others. You mentioned I mentor a lot, not only individually, but with the affiliates. And if you think about it, the affiliates are that ripple effect, because then they bless 100, 200 other people, and so on and so on and so on. So you have to kind of find out your purpose first, right? I think that is so important. Otherwise, it's really easy to get distracted, and we all kind of joke about the shiny object or the squirrel that that takes us in different directions, right?
Uh-huh.
I mean, there's a great phrase by Marie Forleo, and I'm a big fan of a lot of different books. Her book is Everything is Figure Outable, and she talks about being multi-passionate. And I think there's a lot of us probably that are very multi-passionate, and we love different ideas and to do different things. But I'm also a huge fan of being focused. And there's another great book called Essentialism, and it's focusing on the essential and not, again, these things that can take us in a lot of different directions. So this conversation tonight is really about kind of building off of the E-Myth Revisited, another great book.
That book. That's a game changer.
Right?
Holy cow.
It's a game changer. Yes. So even in that book, and it was written in 1986, and it's about somebody who was a baker, and so they opened up a bakery. Kind of sounds like you could insert photographer, right? And you become a photographer, and you have a photography business. Well, being a good baker or a good photographer or a good whatever is a fraction of what it takes to become successful. And then this is the challenge that I want to give all of you is, then what does that mean? And how can you bless others? How can you be of service to others through it, right? To me, that is just the motivation to be really good working in it, on it, so I can be a blessing through it. So that's what we're going to kind of unpack tonight. From time to time, I might ask questions that you might feel like, hey, he's poking at me a little bit, or this is a little
Bryan's
challenging.
picking on me.
Right. That's a good sign. Underline that question, maybe put a star next to it, highlight it, and spend some energy with it later. You may have more questions than answers tonight, right? But I think good, then that's where the work happens.
Flowing.
Absolutely. So that's me, asking for some forgiveness right there, saying, hey, you're going to come out of this with a lot of questions. Spend time with that. And then, of course, reach out to me later. And, if I can help you in any way, of course, my heart is to give back. So definitely, hit me up on Facebook Messenger or through the links that Chris will give, and we'll have that conversation. So like I mentioned, this is kind of built on the E-Myth Revisited. Yeah. Again, that was it from 19...
Put it in the comments. Who has read this book? E-Myth Revisited.
Right.
Put it on there. I'm
great
curious.
Question.
You can say yes or no,
and
you type that in.
And you've said you've read it, right, Chris?
Oh, yeah. I've read it multiple times. Like, I read it, I'm like, whoa, this is good. And then read it again. And then I bought the E-Myth Mastery book as well. That one's a little bit more dry, but it's got some good information in there as well.
What was probably your biggest takeaway from it? Was there one thing?
I think if you were to sum it up, saying working on your business, not just in your business, and then be like, oh, that's where that comes from. That's why that's important. Looks like most of our crowd has not seen or not read E-Myth. You guys are in for a treat if you've never add it to your Amazon list, or there's a website, thriftbooks.com. I buy used books there all the time. You can get them super cheap, which is same content that's in there. But man, add that one.
So one of the things then with that I'll bring up from the fact that a lot of people haven't read that yet is kind of this distinction, what the difference is between working in your business and on your business. Because it can be kind of
verbatim.
Good. It's one of those things, if you think about it, the actual craft of photography, when we're photographers, we're working in our business. That is the actual trade side of our job. Same with sales. Sales is a working in our business, the day-to-day, the conversations with clients, the doing the accounting, all of those tasks are working in our business.
So photography, editing, planning, all of that. Well, planning sessions.
Probably where we spend too much time. I know it sounds a little upside down to think, well, wait a minute. I get paid more because I'm, actually clicking the shutter.
Mm-hmm.
And that could be true. Or I get paid more because I'm doing sales. If I don't do sales, I don't make any money. And that is true. But the exponential growth happens when you work on your business. When you have the systems so that you have great marketing, right? That you're spending energy on planning and you're strategic so that you can have growth. That is working on your business. Something that a lot of people spend, unfortunately, too little time on.
So can you tell me more
I have a
about
question.
working on your business?
Yeah, definitely. It's about problem solving and being able to make refinements. But before I keep going on that, I have a question. How much time as a percentage do you spend on this? And how much time do you think you should spend on this? Anybody want to throw some numbers out? And feel free, Chris, to answer it yourself. If you had to put a number on it, what
percentage of time are you spending working on your business versus
Right.
what amount of time should you be working in your business?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Or vice versa on there. So let's do the first number. How many time do you spend taking pictures and editing versus how much do you plan your marketing strategies or coming up with new pricing formats?
Right. Or, setting your goals and doing the strategic work. Right. So any answers yet?
We've got Michael, I think, to spend time on the business more than in the business. Angela's saying lately 0 hours on both. I know that right now I spend about 20% of my time working on my business and about 80% working in. And ideally, I should be flipping those or doing a 50-50 split to scale and grow better, which may introduce some new opportunities like, oh, I don't have enough time to do the editing. I wonder what I do about that.
Right. So I wanted to throw out a number that's a little safer.
Okay.
20% isn't a bad target. One out of, 1 day a week.
Uh-huh.
Or, a few hours each day. 20% of your time at least carve out to start working on your business. Now, I also believe you need 20% working through your business.
Ooh.
Right? So now I've carved out that 40% so that it only leaves 60% working in it. Right? So you weren't far off with your 80-20. I'm just throwing another 20% in there.
Yeah, that's taking 20% away from the actual button clicking.
Absolutely. And so I was teaching with Bryan Calendar the other day, and he threw out this question to the class, and he said, what is one of the roles of a business? What is one of the important things of a business? And it was to make a profit. Because if we're not profitable businesses, right, we are spending all of our time working in it. We are trading our time for an hourly wage in a sense. And we're just trying to get more things done in it. So the more profitable we can be, the more we can be strategically set up with a game plan, the more we can give back. Now, here's one of the things, and this is always a slippery slope. I find personally, the more I give, the more I'm blessed back. Now, I don't do it. The reason it's slippery is I don't serve to get back. I truly have the heart to serve others. I just find it really cool that when you do serve, you do get back. So when I serve my community serves me back.
What do you mean by serving?
And it's this, yeah. So I serve in Hillsboro. That's my city. It's just right outside Portland. And I serve in a lot of different ways, whether it's on advisory boards for the Chamber of Commerce, which is a great networking and where a lot of my portrait clients come from. I also serve as the chair of the Community Arts Plan and a lot of nonprofits, whether they're theater groups, whether they are painters, sculptors, all kinds of different artists, right? That's my fellow community that I want to see us all do well. Communities that have a strong arts district communities that have people who believe in art
Mm-hmm.
are usually people who also appreciate portraits and photography and art, right? So we foster this idea. If we have great sculptures and, different, parks and just beautification of our city, those people typically also love portraits. So it's one of those things that you can see how this symbiotic relationship happens. The more I invest in my community, working on things like the community plan for what our city looks like in the year 2035. So it's called the 2035 plan. And so we look at it from strategic areas. By working on that plan with city planners who use things like long range planning, I learn how to be a better planner myself. Right?
You're not
So
only volunteering your time, but you're getting a new skill set that's developed from professionals.
absolutely. Absolutely. I've realized things about myself. So it was interesting. You get a lot of entrepreneurs, people who can just try and make stuff happen. Like you and I in our businesses, if we have an idea, we can implement it right away.
Mm-hmm.
Well, long range planners really are good. And they say, well, this is in the discovery phase and the implementation is a whole nother phase. And so they actually taught me how to idea generate, create the space for it, and then have a window and a season to actually implement it. It actually slowed me down, but in a very nice way where I didn't feel like I was always running at 100 miles an hour. And that if I didn't execute something immediately, I would forget it. They just taught me patience, but yet discipline. It was wonderful.
That sounds like an amazing skill set.
Yes, right? Because I don't think we as photographers, and I don't mean to throw any of us under the bus, but we love to have an idea and then just make it happen. And then we have another idea the next day and we have to have some patience. And that's probably why, like the reading list. So my one link that you're going to send out is mitportraits.com/books.
And I'll email that to everybody.
Yeah, I have like 26, 28 books on there. And some of them are on things like Essentialism or Effortless, two really great books that teach me how to focus on the important and not the trivial, how to do better with less, right? Just some really good things. And so serving my community, like again, the room of people then also are the mayor and city council and different industry leaders. It's 30 people who are industry leaders. I'm in that room with them.
And you're connecting as an
authority. So here's one of the things, right? If they see you investing in the community, when it's time for them to choose who to have portraits done by, why wouldn't they also choose a competent, skilled photographer and somebody who gives back to their community? See, there's more than one reason people hire us. And I think that the people who hire me, I love to believe that they hire me for my skill as a photographer, but they also say, and I love your heart and how you want to bless others. So I'm the natural choice. It makes it harder to compete with me. I'm probably sharing some secrets with my neighbor photographers down the street, but I think that's okay too, because again, it's this, we all have different areas of influence. We all have different people we connect with. And if you bless others, they will say, hey, I need a photographer and I want somebody that I trust and that I believe in. Why not you, right? So that's kind of a little bit of the thing is you have to carve that time out. You have to be strategic. And I can speak from experience that I can have sometimes too many irons in the fire.
What?
And that's where, right. That's where essentialism comes in. And it's this idea, how can I do better with less? Or how can I say no to something so I can say yes to something else? Because if we say yes to Yeah, right. So when I read those things, it's almost like the author punches me right in the stomach, and I
I'm
feel it,
talking to you,
right?
Bryan. Yep. Yep.
Exactly. Exactly. And so I love having, those authors, those thought leaders kind of speak that to me and ask me those questions because it's true. If I say yes to everything, I can miss out on certain things. And so if you're not also profitable and that if you're just saying yes to everything that comes your way, you probably have that client then that wanted you to do a bigger project and you would have to say, no, I'm already booked with something else. It's really hard. Now, I want to put a little star next to that and say I'm never advocating not to take projects because cash flow is important, right?
Very much so.
Right. So you have to make your own decisions what that looks like. But I just know that if I have goals and I have, targets that I'm setting, that's also really important. So my background outside of photography has also been in retail sales. And we always had these sheets that said, here's what we did last year. Here's our target goal for this year. And how are we going to achieve it? It's not just we're going to open the doors or we're just, we have a camera, we have batteries charged up. I'm ready for everybody.
Give me money.
So I have numbers and goals and I try and set that out. One other little fun fact on this is I am not a runner. When I did run, I ran track, but I'm a sprinter. So 100 meters, 200 meters. I don't run marathons or 10Ks, but I like to think of that analogy, right? You're going to run a race, you're going to run a 10K. And what are the things you need to do to prepare for it, to practice, to get your miles in so that when it's time to run the race, you have the endurance to do it. All of these kind of analogies fit right within, the strategic planning. Like if your business goal is to, so in the state of Oregon, that's where I'm from, 67,500 is a living wage in the Portland metro area. So what does that look like from a business standpoint? That is not total revenue, right? That is the wage that you would pay yourself. So what kind of revenue do you need to generate for that? And how are you going to do that? Is it through a series of promotions? Is it through a specific set of, family portraits is going to be this much and high school seniors is going to be this much? You have to set all those different goals out and then how you're going to implement them, right? Mm-hmm. That takes a lot of strategic time. What does that look like, right?
Question from Michael. He's saying there's so much that's going on with the business. Sometimes it runs out of time to make a sale. Any solutions on that? How do you balance that time?
Say that one more time. My Siri was just talking to me.
Oh,
sorry about that.
That's fun. So the question was: so with so much of the business, so you're spending time on business, that you run out of time to make the sales. So how do you balance time between working on and in? How do you find that time?
My calendar. My calendar is how I set my time up, and I try whenever I book a session to photograph. I also book the sales appointment because what I can find is I can get overbooked in one area and then I'm scrambling on the other. And I take it a step further. I also try and make it so that I don't get myself in trouble. I also schedule then based on the fact that I have this appointment to photograph, this appointment to have the sales, this appointment to retouch the images, this appointment to send it to the lab, this appointment for the pickup and delivery. And then I work, I can work backwards. So if I have certain sales targets too, I can, flex those things in and say, okay, I'm going to send a bunch of things to the lab on this date. So I need to carve out these 2 days here to get all those images ready because I just had these sales appointments. And so I use my calendar very strategically. There's another author that I like. His name is Brendan Burchard, and he does this funny little skit, right? Where he goes, "Hey, let's go on a yoga retreat." And the person goes, "Oh, I have no time for yoga. I'm a free spirit. I don't like to, put anything on my calendar. I'm just so busy." And he's like, "Oh, free spirit, no have time for yoga." He schedules time for yoga, right? So he's not overly busy doing all kinds of things. So it's just this simple way of, and he's really funny doing it. That wasn't as funny as he does it, but schedule fun in your life too. Schedule date night or just quiet time. So I had an important meeting the other day, and I actually scheduled quiet time. Now, here's one of the things, and this is relevant. Mm-hmm. I attached it to my morning coffee. So I told myself, when you have your morning coffee, you will carve out 30 minutes just to sit quietly, not checking email, not checking Facebook, not getting into somebody else's schedule right away. Mm-hmm. You just need quiet time. I have to schedule that. So the answer to the key for me to any of this is my calendar, right? And I try and put things on there with detail, and I'm also flexible. So many of you know Megan DePiro, and I don't think there's a person better at carving out time on her calendar. If you've seen any of her posts on this, I mean, she's down to drive time. She puts that on her calendar, right? There is nobody better. And there's probably nobody that really achieves more with the amount of time they devote. I mean, she's a machine. She's awesome.
Right. She just released a new book too. I'm gonna have to read that one.
Right. She is so good. Now, I need a little bit of grace. I need a lot of grace in a lot of areas, but I give myself that too in my calendar. So I don't try and pack it so tight, because there are moments. I love kind of those serendipitous moments where maybe it's, I'm going to go for a walk, and on that walk that I scheduled, I'm going to have this idea or that idea, and then I'm going to come back and I am going to spend some energy on it. So momentum is an important thing, and I try and, as much as possible, if I get onto some momentum, I'll ride it for a little while. I use the Pomodoro technique. Are you familiar with that, Chris?
I am not.
The Pomodoro technique? Yeah. So I just happen to have an egg timer.
Okay.
And you basically set the timer for a certain number of minutes. Let's say it's 40 minutes or 50 minutes. And you block everything else out and you focus on that task. And then you take a break. And then you can do 3 of those sessions. And then you take a more extended break. Right? And you would be surprised if you set that egg timer or that alarm, and there's apps that do this as well, and you just focus on that one thing, all of a sudden the alarm will go off and you're like, wow, not only did I get a lot done, but I blocked out those distractions. It's really important, though, that you take just a 5-minute break. And I study a lot of neuropsychology, and they talk about, too, the fact that we can be focused on something. We have to get our brain to also expand. And so going out and looking at the horizon will change our brain chemistry and will actually increase our creativity because of that. So yeah, I know, right? Just it's one of those things. And I love the fact that photography language is so important to our mental health. So when we do focused work, we have to defocus. That is basically what we need to do, right? That's photography is all about focusing and defocusing, changing our perspective on things, right? It's all photography related.
We're getting comments here saying that people are definitely going to start scheduling reading time, doing more scheduling, and the egg timer does work. So
awesome.
You're speaking the truth, Bryan. You're speaking the truth.
Awesome. Yeah. And it is one of those things too that, just hearing the little clicking, I think it becomes this thing of, okay, I'm in a focus session, discipline. So I need that discipline to stay focused. Otherwise, Facebook and YouTube and all kinds of things can distract me. And you know what that does? That puts pressure on me because now I'm behind.
Right. Perform,
And
deadline,
does-
deadline.
do you do your best work under pressure?
Oh, absolutely
I
not.
don't.
I like to
Right.
think that I do, like that. Yeah, I can thrive under pressure, but when it's like, no, I have to meet this deadline and do it, I'm getting it done versus being creative or enjoying the process. And it's like I have to have that time and that stages to go through, and it's like, okay, let's do this. I need a deadline to make sure that I don't procrastinate forever on it, but at last
Right.
minute, not the best time for me. I'm not sure if you're the same way.
Oh, I am completely the same way. And one of those statements that you said is, when we work alone or by ourselves,
Mm-hmm.
that little voice is in the back of our head saying, you need to focus on something else, but we can ignore ourselves. Now, Rachel probably can say, hey, Chris, what are you working on? And you'll be like, oh, yeah, I'm working on the most important thing I can right now. We need that other voice. And so whether it's an accountability partner or a business partner, I think it's fantastic to have some kind of check-in and some kind of feedback. It's healthy. It's uncomfortable though. It is one of those things that we can all say, yeah, I'm not working on the most important thing, but give yourself grace. So that's one of the things you'll hear me say all the time is I also love to enjoy this, and it's a journey, right? We are not just out for pure profit. Again, it's about being a blessing. It's also being a blessing to us. So I started us out with a question like, we work for our business to serve us, but how does our business serve others? It needs to be enjoyable. We don't want to burn out. We can go get jobs. We don't want to just be our own bosses and be not our best boss. There's another, I have several books that I need to write, which is code for me saying I haven't scheduled it well enough to make it happen.
It's not on the
right?
calendar yet, Bryan. It's not real.
Exactly. Right. So see the vulnerability that I just threw out there. But one of the chapters in the book is asking, are you your best or worst employee?
Yes.
In some ways, I would fire myself in certain areas. So I think I'm a better planner, CEO, strategic planner than I am sometimes getting day-to-day tasks done. So recognizing that, leveraging my calendar, checking in with myself. When our family business, it used to be my mom, dad, sister, and I.
Mm-hmm.
I think I had more accountability. Unfortunately, now it's really just my business, so I can sometimes blow myself off and say, "Oh yeah, you'll get to it, Bryan." So that's a lot of information right there on how do I make this happen. I try and leverage my calendar as much as possible.
I've got kind of a
Google
fun anecdote on that as well. With the calendar stuff, you're like, okay, that seems like a simple concept, but the guilt and being able to turn off when you have a calendar, that was a completely unintended side effect that, at least for me, happened, where I'd have all these projects that I want to do stuff on. It's like, oh, I've got to plan this, and I've got this image competition to work on, and all these other things going on. It's like, I don't want to take time off because then I'm not going to get that done. I feel guilty having downtime, recharge time. And when I started doing some blocking that was in it, a weird thing happened that I'm working on this during this time, and when I'm not in that blocked off time, I'm okay to rest and recharge, and that's something that we need to do because I know that's like, oh, I'm going to work on that specific project at this date and this time, so I know it's going to get done. So I didn't have to have that like bogging me down of that guilt of like,
Right.
should I really watch this Netflix show when I could be working on something else? I didn't plan on that, but that's been a definite game changer for me. I know I'm throwing that word around pretty frequently here, but it changes how you look at stuff and then your energy going forward when you know that this is the time that I can be creative on this. The rest of that guilt, defocus it. The rest of those commitments, defocus it. Work on what's in front of you, and you get a lot more done.
Absolutely. It's giving yourself permission to actually do the thing that you're doing. right? A lot of us will say, oh, I should be doing this. Well, we're useless in that situation. We're not enjoying, the Netflix maybe that we're watching, and we're not getting the other thing done. So as much as possible, yeah, give yourself permission to rest, recharge. There's also studies that show if you want to be 30% smarter or more productive, make sure you get plenty of sleep. Sleep is one of the things that we don't do enough of. And then we suffer the consequences because we're not as focused, we're not as productive as we can be. It's really hard. It's counterintuitive to say, I need to get my rest so that I can be as productive as possible. There's a shortage. We're all so driven. We have so many ideas, but sleep is huge. So maybe that's a takeaway. Also,
Bryan says I need more sleep.
Right. I give myself permission to nap. I'll take a nap. I call it meditation, so it sounds cooler, right? I'm just going to meditate for about 30 minutes, but I'll wake up from those with a whole new sense of focus. And so I think it's one of those things, believe in your calendar, think through the things of, how to work in your business. You have to carve that out. You can't spend all of your time doing that, though. You have to work on it. And then for me, I work through it. So that's where people, again, will ask me, Bryan, you spend time with the affiliates, you judge, you speak. How do you find time for that? I find it essential for me. That's my character. That's what I love to do. If I don't feed that part of me, right, then I might as well just go get a different job, right? And have less stress in some areas. It's running a photography business, as you know, isn't just about taking images. There's a lot of other stuff going on. We might as well have the life we want also, right?
Yeah. So we do have a couple of questions and comments. On YouTube. I don't want to
throw
lose
them this
before
way.
we get going because I'm liking what this direction is. So Angela was like, "What is sleep?" And Connie brought up that good point, asking if you're your best or worst employee. Kind of eye opening there. Michael saying, "Great question. Maybe time to reevaluate and try to do things better." Carolyn saying, "Photoshop's a big black hole as well." Do have a question from Chris. Do you not do retouching your images before the sale, or what's your process there?
That's a great question, and I'll answer it in a couple different ways. One is I time things out so that I have baselines.
Okay.
So Photoshop is a black hole, and I learned this from Kevin Kubota. If you know Kevin, he's a wonderful photographer, and he created a bunch of actions. But he did this little analogy one time, and it was, "Honey, it's time for dinner. Okay, I'm retouching some images. I'll be there in just a few minutes. Okay, honey. I put the kids to bed. You want to come down and watch a movie with me? Yeah, that sounds great. I'm just finishing up Photoshop. I'll be with you in a little while." And then it's okay, I'm going to bed. I'll see you tomorrow. Oh, okay, that sounds great. Thanks, honey. And we're still in Photoshop. And it's scary how true that can be. But some people think that that's like this badge of I'm working on the craft. And I find it better to say, okay, how long is this project going to take? And do I have the time to focus on it right now? So for me, and this goes back in the day, Suzette Allen, another instructor, she spends 6 minutes or less retouching an image. The reason that number exists is because that's when she used to scan film. It took 6 minutes for the scanner to scan an image. So she would retouch it by the time the next one scanned. So I use that as an example. And I say, okay, so if it takes me 6 minutes or less, if I have, we'll say 10 images, that's 60 minutes, that's 1 hour. Right? Mm-hmm. So I can look at it and it takes me, every once in a while I'll do this on the piece of paper. So I have the list of 10 images. I say it's, 5:40 right now. And I'll go through and I'll write then what time I end. And ironically, it's about 6 minutes. Some images take, 2 minutes. Some images might take a little longer. And this is kind of portrait headshots. And so my workflow is my target is 6 minutes or less. So any project I can carve out, maybe it's, okay, I'm going to spend 3 hours. I have these 3 orders to get done. I'm going to batch those together. So I'm a fan of batching. I'm going to batch those together. I'm going to send it to the lab. I know that the delivery is 2 days, right? And I'm not sure what ACIs is exactly, but you can, target those kind of things. Mm-hmm. You can have your deliveries already on there. So you can be in control of your time. But I don't retouch my images before I sell them. I do color correction, So here's one of the things. Now, this isn't a commercial for becoming a certified professional photographer, but getting it right in camera saves you so much time. So I shoot tethered, and I try and get it right in camera where I might have to move the Lightroom sliders just so that I go, oh, I better move them back because that was actually good, right? And then just batching and sequencing, like maybe it's adding a little contrast or maybe it's doing one little thing, but the images are ready for viewing. Very rarely, I might, if it's a large family, I may take and kind of Frankenstein one best image where I have everybody looking just right. Mm-hmm. But I, again, try and get it right in camera where I'm really focused on saying, hey, let me get the expression here and let's get that one. And I try and get that shot because I don't want it to be where I'm fixing everything in Photoshop. Again, that's the black hole for me. And personally, it's not fulfilling for me. I would rather be serving my community than spending time in Photoshop. Some people that lights them up and that's their jam, and that's okay. But I just know for me personally, so I minimize the amount of retouching. I try and get it right in camera. I shoot tethered because there's a phrase I came up with is that's when I started seeing my best work realized. I had the vision of what I wanted my work to look like out of the camera, and shooting tethered gave me that time back. So find those systems, work those systems. And that's some of the working on it is making sure you have the systems in place and the workflow so that when you're working in the business, you're super efficient.
Yeah, that's
so hopefully that answered this.
Too, is it makes you efficient. Like if you only have 2 hours to get this project done, magically it takes you exactly 2 hours to finish that project. But if you've got 10 hours to do it, it takes you 10 hours to do that project. So it's like, or
you don't start it because you're like, oh, this is a 10-hour project. So being realistic, even I set a timer when I go to on location, how long it takes me to set up my lights when I'm doing headshots, like, a 3 light setup. I'll just set my timer on my phone. And sure enough, it's like it takes me about 12 minutes. I ask for 30 minutes and then I tell the admin, I'm all set. And they're like, oh, that was really quick. And so it's one of those things that I just like to know how long a task takes. Mm-hmm. And then I don't get overblown in my head or get behind. Like if I had said, oh, I only need 10 minutes and then I needed 15 that day, that's the pressure on myself. So I try and have some realistic timeframes, and then it just takes pressure off me. But I don't spend a lot of time retouching images. I know others have different workflows. I just know that works for me.
So curious for our audience, what takes up a majority of your day, or what's your big time suck? Put that one in chat. I'm kind of curious to see, what do you spend time on? Is it actually waiting for clients to show up and just that I can't do anything while this is happening, or spending time doing Photoshop or Lightroom or getting things prepped or retouching afterwards? Or do you spend a lot of time on emails or Facebook, or does it just kind of go into the black hole of things happened and I got nothing done? So Angela's saying social media, that's a big one. Social media marketing.
Right.
We'll put that up there. Great way of reaching out.
So I want to address the social media marketing animal in terms of marketing, and I have a different approach to it, and so I just want to share it. And it's really one of those things I learned from my dad. So he built our business not through social media, but by being social. So I find the very best way for me to connect with clients, and yes, this is maybe more pre-COVID, but it still works. If I went to the coffee shop, if I went to Insomnia Coffee on 53rd Avenue, that's where I found 4 or 5 of my clients also having coffee. So being in my community was the best way to connect with people. And then I ask them questions. Not, hey, do you need portraits? Hi, do you need portraits? Hey, did you know I'm a photographer? I invest in them and I say, what's new and exciting? What is your family up to these days? And I also try and help connect them to others. So here's kind of one of those things. I might say to somebody I know they have another small business, hey, what is the most important thing you're working on right now? I'm genuinely curious. And I might go, oh, that sounds really cool. I know so-and-so is working on something similar, or do you know so-and-so? And I try and connect people. All of those people, when a time comes along that you're the natural connection for someone else, they will connect you back. So I get this all the time.
Got a question on this one. Wants to know, so are you saying that find a Starbucks and try to socialize as a marketing tool?
So great distinction on that. One of the things I am fortunate because I built up a community of people that I already serve, right? So I'm a little bit further down the road on this. I wouldn't say just go socialize with strangers. Mm-hmm. I am fortunate that I position myself in the community where people know my work already. So working with the chamber. It's one of those things, there's a lot of eyes on us as photographers. So as we give back to different projects, people notice that. And I've had people say things like, oh, you're a photographer, aren't you? And I've never met them before. They already know of me because they've seen me in the community serving. So I have that luxury. So I'll just kind of throw that out there. But what it is, and this is an example, this is a project I'm currently working on. So I'm going to share it to you in kind of real time. So I was at Insomnia Coffee, which is the coffee place I go to, and our mayor was there. And the mayor's been a client of mine in the past. I photograph him for the city. So I have a really strong connection. But I noticed that on Facebook, he has some new grandchildren. So I said to him, I want to do a legacy portrait of you with your grandchildren. I said, one of the things is I never had a chance to get my image taken when I was little with my grandfather. And he said, I said, I'd love to do this with you. And his wife's name is Joan. And he says, we should probably include Joan in a few of those. And I'm like, that's a good idea. Right? So he already sees the value in this, but it's a conversation I had with him. And it was a meaningful one, not trying to necessarily just create portraits, but it's the legacy portraits. And so that's one of the umbrellas. I know we don't have all night. I could probably teach for days on different things. One of the things I really want to communicate is strategically figuring out what your business stands for. So for me, I believe in 2 things. One is social mission, and the other is legacy and giving back. So there's a glass company that I really love, Warby Parker, and they're basically their mission is to eradicate eye defects, to eradicate blindness, to eradicate vision impairment. So they basically have this for every pair of glasses that somebody buys, they give a pair of glasses to somebody in need. Right? That's their calling. That's their mission. There's a watch company that I really love their marketing, and it says you never own a Patek Philippe. You merely care for it for the next generation. It's all about that, creating a legacy. And so that's how I'm known in my community, as somebody who cares about the community and is about the roots and the legacy of the community. So when I talk in terms of projects, they're kind of based on those things. I even do things where I might target a group of business owners that's part of a group and say, hey, let's do a project, and some of the proceeds from it can serve the Boys and Girls Club or something else in our community. And now I've got synergy and energy working
that is
together.
so effective. Being able to
Absolutely.
So what are some of these? I'm getting some of the questions coming in chat, just trying to understand this connecting. Right. So from going to Starbucks or meeting people and doing Zoom, things like that. So it's like, okay, we've got this connection we need to form, but maybe what are some ideas, Bryan, that we can start to reach out to our community? Like, how do we find organizations or others to partner with, or to meet these people that we can form these connections with? So it's not just random.
Right.
If we're starting from zero
Yes.
and we don't know the mayor, what do we do?
Right. Great. And I'm glad to get really kind of framed in on this.
Yep.
So I think that the first thing is to find others that share the same kind of passions or purpose, right? So like-minded people. Same values would be a great way to frame it. Yes.
So that could be like nonprofit arts organizations. That could be maybe
absolutely
a church or something. That could be a civic thing that's like, hey, we want to tackle this disease. We want to tackle this issue that's in our community, or having something that people with a similar philosophy to you.
Absolutely. Okay. Yeah. And there's no right or wrong, but it's about just kind of finding that tribe. I mean, Seth Godin talks about that. It narrows things down, because otherwise it's easy to go too broad. So find a group to serve and connect with them. But here's the thing, and this is building off of Building a Story Brand by Donald Miller. Mm-hmm. We're not the hero. Right? This isn't about us. We are there to serve the hero, right? We're Yoda.
Yeah.
And our client is Luke Skywalker. So get really focused on, how can I serve my community best? So what I look at it is, I'm a small business owner who serves the community with photography. It's not about being a photographer, and the community is there to support me.
It's the medium to do that. You accomplish that goal with your natural talents when it comes to the lens-based work.
Exactly. So I would focus on a group, whether it's a boundary. So it could even be a school, right? So some of you may have kids that are in a school. So you say, okay, I'm going to focus on Liberty High School, and I'm going to try and photograph high school seniors, and maybe focus on the incoming freshmen. Nobody focuses on incoming freshmen. The story of that time in their life, being able to create great portraits. There's a few people that do what's called tween sessions, but maybe it's carving out incoming freshmen are going to be my group that I want to serve. Maybe it's athletes. Maybe you want to, the band, whatever it is. I mean, it could be a specific school. It could be a group of schools. It could be, like you said, all the nonprofit arts groups in my community. You get to pick.
We've got some great ideas in the chat too, from Chamber of Commerce or Rotary, Animal Rescues. There's lots of options when it comes to it.
Absolutely. So pick one of those and then make them the hero. So I'll a lot of times say, how can I or my business solve your most important problem? I mean, that's the more tactical way of saying it, but how can I be of service is another way. And you get to figure out ways to ask that question. I use, hey, what's new and exciting? If you use that phrase, it takes people a second and they're like, oh, nobody asks that. Normally it's, hi, how are you? I'm good. How are you? And you do that dance instead of, hey, what's new and exciting? And let them tell you. Right? And then go, oh, that sounds great. And again, I know so-and-so, or let me know how that's going. And then here's one little key. I usually, if you haven't noticed, I've mentioned many books. Mm-hmm. I usually have a book that this references. I also have then a list. I used to use Evernote. Now I just use Notes, but I have these things listed out. and I'll say something like, I'll email that to you, that book, right?
Mm-hmm.
They'll say, oh yeah, I'm going to read that, but they never, very rarely do. So then I can look them up, whether it's through the chamber. I probably already have their email. I will email that to them. Hey, it was great to see you today. Here's that book by, on Essentialism that I mentioned. Take care. Hope to see you again. And I do that. I try and do that by the time I leave the parking lot of wherever I was at when I said I would do it. So I give myself that little goal. So when they get home, it's like, oh yeah, it was great to see you today, Bryan. Right.
And you're in their inbox and on their mind and in there for future projects. So we are about out of time, Bryan. I do have some prizes and stuff to give. I know you got so much more content. You're like, no, there's so much more we can do on here. But I want to make sure that we're giving away some cool stuff because that's kind of fun to do. So this is, again, thank you to American Color Imaging. They do have a special for today, and this is 25% off of big photographic prints. So if you look in the sidebar right now you'll see a little gift, and it's got the special code that you need to do in order to get that 25% off of the gifts, big photographic prints that are there. So make sure you're checking that out. And here's a little preview of some of the upcoming shows that we have. So up next, I'm going to be doing a special edition one where I'm going to be talking about perfecting your price list. So if you want to know about how to price, how to format it, if you should use like, hey, do we use numbers that end in 9 or even numbers, or what's best to use when, and how do packages work, diving deep into that one. I've got Erica Lane Harvey coming up with Some Days Code for Never, so getting your projects done. We've got lots more stuff, registrations open on those. But let's give away some prizes. So up first, we've got a $50 lab credit to ACI. So let's see who the winner is on the lab credit. I know. They're so generous for giving away stuff, and I think this is kind of fun and gives us a little bit of excitement. And it's right on the alley. So congratulations, Allie. Make sure that you email me so I can get you the gift certificate for that. And let's go up for our next prize, and that one's a $75 lab credit. So let's see who the winner of that one is. $75 lab credit. I love the little spinny thingy. I think it's fun. And again, we're right on that line, and it's Bill. We're writing that down. So, Bill, make sure that you reach out to me as well so we can get it. And I've got one more prize to give away, and that's a $100 lab credit. So, $100 lab credit. I just love this one. ACI's like, you know what? Let's give away some cool stuff today. Everybody needs a refresher after IPC. And that one's going to Steven. Awesome. So, Bryan, thank you so very, very much. I've had a blast chatting with you today. So just a reminder for everybody that we do have more episodes that are there. So make sure you're checking those out. I'm going to have a follow-up email that's going out. Also, I'm going to be in Georgia at the Photo Works. So that's a 4-day hands-on thing, kind of think like Texas school, but in Georgia, where we're going to be doing eclectic creativity. So doing headshots, doing pinups, and Photoshop composites. So it's a very much a hands-on class. We are going to be diving deep both on the business side as well as the creative side on how to do that stuff. So I've got more details also going to be in that follow-up email along with the links to Bryan's website so you can get a hold of him. We're going to have his recommendations on those books in there as well. So any parting thoughts for us, Bryan?
I do. I have one last thing, and it's this idea of a phrase that says, we didn't come this far to only come this far. And I think there's so much abundance and potential in our industry, and there's so many great things that we can do to serve others through our business, but we have to be really good working in it and on it to make that happen. So hopefully I gave you some great ideas today. Reach out to me if you have questions, and thank you, ACI and Chris. It's been a pleasure.
Yeah, thank you so much, Bryan. Like, take his advice, everybody. Like, holy cow, it's changed my business and my way of thinking. Just getting some of that insight. He's speaking the truth there. He's speaking the truth. All right. Well, thank you so very much, Bryan. I appreciate your time.
Thank you. Take care.